Today we're going behind the scenes to create some cinematic images in Studio. Now, even though there is an unlimited number of ways that you can create images like this, I'm showing you my process, the measurements, the what I'm thinking about, and how I'm putting lights around the scene to create something that feels like it's shot on location, but created in Studio. So follow along and enjoy. So we're going to take you through my approach on creating this cinematically inspired image. Now we're going to begin by kind of really dialing in the lighting and the technical elements here, and then once we have that, introducing some creative options. Now this is a relatively seeming complex setup. We've got 7 lights, but each of these lights or pairs of lights has a specific job, and we're going to kind of walk you through what each of those jobs are. When I start to look at a scene like this, usually my approach is to light from the background forward. This sometimes is in opposition to how we think about lighting in Studio, where we'll start with maybe the key light and the fill and the rim and really work around the subject. But I'm actually going in reverse because creating environmental light is usually a little bit more challenging and time consuming. And so I spend more time doing that than I bring in my light on my subject last. So I'm going to start by metering the background, just getting a good amount of light on it. I'm going to use my spot meter, and I'm going to try to get it about at exposure, maybe a little dark. So I'm going to be aiming to shoot around a 2.8 to a 4, somewhere in that ballpark, maybe even like a 3.2, just to make things a little difficult for myself. And so if I can get the reading on the background to be somewhere around 2.8, that would probably be a good starting place if I'm shooting at a 3.2 or a 4. So let's take a look. So it's coming in at about 2. Let's take a look and see where a 2 looks at about a 2.8, so about a stop under. I'm going to go ahead and throw this transmitter back on the camera. All right. So what I've got here is a little bit of a dim background, which I don't necessarily hate. I think I'm going to leave it here for the time being. And I might want to add a little more light on it. Let's just see what happens if I turn it up maybe a half a stop. I think this looks pretty nice. It's got a good amount of drama to it. I think I'm going to leave this here for a second. Okay. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to make that light emanate, right? So I want to make it feel a little more natural. Obviously, a background has less contrast in the real world. So I'm going to do this in 2 ways. I'm going to add a little bit of a flare from the top, right? Really creating a glowy light source. And then I'm going to do a couple of rim lights on the side. But because this is this reddish sky, I'm going to add some color to those rim lights in the form of some reddish orangish gels. I already have one light with that color above. This light I actually want to be a little brighter than exposure. So I am currently shooting at a 3.2. I think if I can get it somewhere around there to a 4, I think would be a really good place to start for that light. Can I grab that meter, please? I'm using a retracted dome here so that I can more specifically target that light. It's reading 4.03, so it's about a third of a stop over 4. This might be kind of bright, but let's give it a try. All right. I think it looks pretty good there. However, if I start to shoot up, you're going to get a lot more flare out of it for 2 reasons. And it's going to change how it looks. I like how this looks. This is on purpose. This is intentional flare. 1, we've been running a haze machine in here a little bit to add some haze and atmosphere to the room. This makes the light sources glow a little bit. The second thing is I'm using a 1/2 CineSoft filter. This is made by Prism Effects. This adds extra glow to the image and really makes those highlights have that effect. I think this is cool. I think it makes it look a bit more organic. If I were to take this off, you'll see how the contrast changes, and that flare, even when shooting from below, isn't as strong. So I have a little bit of that light being cast on the head and shoulders, which I think looks good. But I'm also going to bring in some light via the rims. Each of these rims is a 1x4 softbox, strip softbox with a grid. They don't have any color on them yet. I'm going to go ahead and get a meter on them first and then add the color in, which is going to make it a little bit darker. So if I can have this exposure relatively close, so around a 2.8 1/3 or around a 2.8, I think that's probably going to be a pretty good spot to start. Okay. The correct way to meter for a gel is to meter it at exposure and then add the gel, and this is going to give you that density of color. So currently, I'm reading 4.08. I think it's a little bright. If I bring that down about an eighth or so, 4.02, 4.01, let's bring that down just a little bit more, just so we're coming in right at 4. This is still going to be a little bit overexposed, but like I said, by the time I bring that red back into it, it's going to feel a little bit more dense. So there's no color there. This is going to help sell the effect that the red is coming from the sky. To be totally honest, I'm not entirely sold on it being this minimal. I might want to really play it up. I like the flare from the top, but I want to see how it looks and then make that adjustment. And then if I shoot it with the flare, I think it's okay. I'm going to turn it up a stop. I think that's looking pretty good. So what I now have is a background that feels a little more lived in. The environment feels like it's casting light onto my subject. But what's happening is the subject is relatively silhouetted out here. So I'm going to add my key light in now to Yabe. Now, I'm using a little bit of a specialty modifier. This is an optical spot. What it has is a focusing lens on the end of it with the ability to create tight pockets of light. And what I'm going to do is create a little bit of a dramatic slit across the eyes, an eye light that you might see in like older movies. So I'm going to add that in. Let's go ahead and get a meter on this. Go ahead. So turn it down, let's say 1/3 of a stop, and let's start with that. It's looking really nice. I think it's maybe a little too pocketed. Let's open it up just a hair. Cool. There you go. There you go, right there. That looks great. So I'm going to add in a little bit of color to my shadows, kind of a cyan complementary color, a little bit of a teal green. I think this could look really fun. So I'm going to flip this on, and I'm going to aim to keep it probably about a half a stop below my main. So I'm going to flip the modeling light on so we can see it a little bit better. Okay, and let's see where we're at. So we're at 3.2. So it's reading at about a half a stop. It's reading 2.08. I think that looks really nice. It's got some really beautiful complexity to it, right? Can we see it without the fill, please? Yeah, so it just that's a slight little metallic lift, which I think really brings some really nice life to it, okay? So I've got the light. Now, how do we turn it into something that feels cinematic, right? I can use a series of props or little things that I just collect randomly. I've got old telephones and just all kinds of things. I had picked up an old window pane on Facebook Marketplace relatively recently. What we've done here is we've rigged it to a stand. Okay. So I'm going to fake a window That's cool. Super cool. That looks great. So my general approach here is to kind of light the scene so that I can play in it and I can have flexibility. I'm not always making myself strictly adhere to any one particular place. And sometimes what you'll find is a lot of those really fun, happy accidents that are some of those complex lighting situations that you find out in the world that it's oftentimes really hard to create in studio. And that's what I really love about shooting it this way. So what we're going to do is we're going to wrap Yabi and we're going to move over to Jeffrey, and I'm going to show you how, kind of just changing out some props and some styling things, I'm going to use almost the same sort of setup, but I'm going to get some different looking images. So stylistically, the lighting is fundamentally staying the same, right? I'm changing one detail though. So one of the cool things about this optical spot modifier is the ability to put in what we call Gobos. Gobos are go-betweens. These are made out of metal, and they're just these little cutouts that allow you to project these patterns. And so what I've got here are some branches. This is going to give me like a broken texture across the face because I'm not going to project it entirely sharp. This is going to fit right in here. And how we really want to make sure we can see what we're looking at is we're going to turn the lights down to make it a little easier to see. Cool. We're also going with a phone prop, just for something to do. See how that looks? Well, it's looking pretty cool. I like it. I like it. I'm actually going to turn this down a hair, somewhere around half of a stop. Oh, it's looking nice. And you can definitely see how that light comes in and out of being in there. Can we turn the modeling light off on the green, please? And I'm going to go over to my 16:9 crop again. Give me something a little more dramatic, which I like. I think that's cool. Can you put it on that ear for me? Let me just see how that looks. That's cool. There you go, good, yeah. That's great. Killer, fantastic. Love it, looks awesome. So as you can see, what goes into creating these images is no one thing. There's no one way that you can make an image feel cinematic. It's about telling the story, and sometimes we do that through lighting, styling, props, all of these things, and they usually come together to make the final magic. I hope you've enjoyed what this looks like behind the scenes, and you found some information in there that you can take away to apply to your own images.